All right, so continuing from my last video, I was athlete 9. I did the average of stress. So as you see you see how this athlete is stress levels go up and down on a consistent basis. And so I think that's a problem because, when it comes, if athletes are stressed out all the time, they can't focus on doing the right things of training. They can't focus on growing as an athlete because they are either so stressed out or not enough, or it's kind of like they're not stressed, but they're not performing well either. All right, now we'll go to athlete 10. With athletes 10 data, excuse me, I took the average of their mood and compared it to the weekly volume, and so of the training weekly volume. So as you can see with week 1, they trained really hard, but then they start to go down, then they start to go up, and I think that can be a problem, especially if you have a person that is not performing because of the mood that they're in, or the state of mind that they have. And so as you can see, athlete 10, she gets, like, at the beginning, the first 3 days, the first 7 to 14 days of training, it's consistent. Like, her mood is like on a consistent base, but then it like spikes up. And so you just want to make sure that we keep an eye on those type of things. Athlete 11, here we took the AC ratio, and we see here that this athlete is like, so with this ratio, you take the first 3 days, and then you take the next 7 days, and so you take the average, and it just seems like for the first 3 days, the athletes is not performing what they need to be, and they increase over time. But it's like, why we look into why that I'm concerned on why that is, especially since their stress level after the first 3 days were high. And so I would be concerned, and I would tell the coach to say, hey, maybe we need to see what's going on, because it seems like to be a pattern with the soccer players of this data. So here, looking at athlete 12, we just looking at the average of the sleep quality. So we're just trying to see if the athlete is getting good, if the soccer player is getting good quality of sleep. And this is important because, as you can see, that the athlete is kind of getting good quality of sleep, like they're at that 10 mark, but majority of the time here, they're not. So it's like, okay, they have one good night, a couple of days of a good night, and then it drops down, and it drops down. So that we got to figure out why, because if that's affecting performance, then I'm sorry. Then that could be a problem. So for athlete 13, I did the monotony strain, and then the average of the sleep quality. And so here, as you can see, that I feel like that there's more strain, so that this athlete is overtraining. So it's training too hard because they have more strain than they do monotony. And, when, according to the research, they have the strain is dropped below 0.5, then they have to detrain. So here, it's not like she does drop even on the first day, it's below 0.5. So that means we need to back off what we're doing. And that's why it's important to, once the athlete reaches that point, you have to be able to be like, what coaches got to be like, okay, we're doing too much. We need to slow down a little bit. Athlete 14, the average of the mood, and as you can see, this athlete particularly had it just at the beginning of the training, I feel like the person was in a great mood, and then it just died down and stayed a consistent base. So here, that's where my alarming is, because it just flatlined. And you really don't want an athlete to flatline like that, especially when it comes down to move, because then they're not focused on what they're trying to achieve. And here, as when you see that this is flatlining, then the workload has pretty much increased. So they don't necessarily be in a mood to, I mean, the workload here has decreased. Like they don't perform well weekly. Athlete 15, we took the average of the stress and then took that into the average of the mood. And so this is like the main like problem that I've noticed about these athletes, these soccer players, is mood and stress are like the main factors on why their performance is low. And I think that that's common with women's sports and women in general. Because we have emotions, we stress out about a lot. So I think that that's what we need to mainly focus on when we have coaches that are coaching women's sports. Athlete 16, we took the AC ratio, and as you can see, this one's a little bit better than the other when I did that, because the first 3 days were consistent, and even throughout the 7 to 14 days was pretty consistent. But then we also, we have like that peak where that is really, really high. And so we wanted to just be more consistently, because you don't want to increase any risk of injury at all. Athlete 17, we took the average of the soreness and the AC ratio, as you can see. And then the AC ratio, research have shown that, they wanted to be that 0.5, that 0.5 mark. And with here we have a 0.8. So we're above that. So that means the athlete is pretty much okay. But it's flatlining here because of the soreness. So I'm thinking that maybe this athlete got sore and she didn't necessarily, it was too much for her. So she had to just stop doing it completely. And that's what we don't want. We want people to push through, that first couple weeks, but not train too hard. Athlete 18, we have the weekly volume of the monotony and strain. So here with the monotony, you want, so if the monotony here, if it's below 1.5, which it is, this means that this is a problem, because it's going to be harder for the athlete to recover, because they have so much strain on them. And as you can see here, week 1, this athlete was working hard, and all of a sudden decreased and then died out at the end. That's what we don't want. We don't want for you go so, you work out, you train so hard at the beginning, and then our athletes burn out or they decrease before they can really even start. So that's what I would definitely, this would be actually with athlete 18, this would be something I would definitely get with the coaches and say, look, we have to find the problem. We need to do certain things, because we don't want this girl, especially she's a freshman, you already burnt out and you're only on week 14. That's not even half the season. So we want to make sure the girls are healthy and be able to perform the whole period of time. Well, the whole season, basically. Athlete 19, we have an effect size. And so we know the effect size, the effect size greater than 2 means it's a larger stress. So here she doesn't have too much stress, but then I also don't think that she has enough stress either to make her train harder. So she's not doing too much training, but I also don't think that she's getting enough, because as you see, this one here drops way below here. And now with the monotony strain, we have too much strain than monotony. So that's the problem. We don't want to have, we want your strain to be as low as possible with the athlete. So I think this athlete is overly training. Athlete 20, the average of fatigue, and then the weekly volume. So here, you take the average of the fatigue, and this athlete is pretty much below. I mean, she's hitting it, but I just feel like that first week, she got fatigued, And I think that's the problem with a lot of our athletes is when they first start working out, they get fatigued, they get tired, and then they just want to stop instead of working through it. And so us as, we need to get the coaches involved to say, okay, this is prepare them like that. You're going to be sore, you're going to hurt, but we got to keep pushing through. Because then now if you don't, athletes are just going to be done, and it's not really going to help them at all. Athlete 21, average of the mood here. So as you can see, with women, I've noticed in most women, like I said, the mood, the stress, fatigue, these are the main factors that contribute to their performance. And it's funny because I don't think that this happens in males, but I see doing this project that when I look through mood, stress, I could see the inconsistency. It's up and then it's down and it's up and then down. And that's not healthy for an athlete or a woman in general because they just have so many emotions and ups and downs that can affect how they perform. Athlete 22, we're looking at soreness here, and as you can see, athletes drop below the lemon line, and they just are sore a lot of the time. So it has an effect on how much you're training every week because they're not going to want to train because they're too sore. Athlete 23, go back to athlete 23. The AC ratio here, this one was a little bit different. I mean, it's still on the below side, but then it pops back up to that 1.5. So this is a problem here, like we said, because majority of her training, majority of it is falling below that 1.5. So with the research, I would tell, it's going to be harder for her. She's training too hard. It's going to be hard for her to recover. She's not getting enough recovery time. And it's going to be hard for her because her training is just so below that 1.5 for that monotony. So, I'm sorry. No, that's not what I meant to say. We're talking about AC ratio. So yeah, so we're looking at the days. I don't know why that was in my head. So for the first 3 days, she has a decent amount of training, and then it's steady the next week, and then going up and down, up and down, up and down. So we kind of wanted to be more leaning towards the above the line, the gray line here, more than under the blue line. Athlete 24, the average of soreness here, is just that I think that this soreness for women, it has the biggest impact on their performance. As you can see, they're sore more often than not sore. And so they may not be working through and pushing through that soreness. They might just be doing the minimum. Athlete 25, the average of sleep quality here, the first 3 days, again, they're not getting much sleep. They're not, the quality isn't bad because I'm trying to figure out with all of these athletes, it seems like at the beginning of those first 3 workouts or the first week, they have so much going on that they're not performing. All right. Athlete 26 here, we took the average of the stress. And as you can see, the stress levels are higher. And the average of fatigue, they're lower. Because if you're you have low fatigue, you're stressed out so much that now you're really tired. So you're dropping down and you're becoming too fatigued that you may not recover. So I would encourage the coaches to make sure that they have adequate recovery time, making sure they're not overtraining too early, making sure they're not undertraining, because you don't want that burnout before athletes can really develop their, the great skill. And last but not least, athlete 27. And so here, the effect size was less than 2. So, it had a pretty decent correlation, but here I think it's a problem because there's no stress being they're not training enough because there's no